Hello, fellow citizens. I mean, boys and girls, men and women, young and old, and just every citizen of the Green Coast or Liberia, as we've been deceitfully made to know this country's name to be. I'm also greeting every non-citizen living within our borders, and all of our citizens living outside of here, not forgetting every one of our dear brothers and sisters of the same human family living across our one globe. I am Roland Kati, and I come to speak to you in the name of the Plain Truth Revolution. This is a small, peaceful civic group that has been constituted by the grace and power of God to liberate our country, the Green Coast, from the power of darkness. And we do represent 7 huge constituencies of the dead, the living, and all future generations of this country. That's how all-inclusive we are. The living referred to here include all of God's suffering children in this place and a number of those outside of here who either belong to our country or do have some honest interest in our people or our country, but they continue to remain terribly disappointed about how this place continues to keep failing and going down the dumps with the passage of time with just no signs of improvement in sight. We, meaning the Plain Truth Revolution, have prepared 5 main audio recordings for publication as part of our revolution's 3rd civic outing or civic action this early March 2017. And this one, the first of these 5 clips, is entitled Introduction to the Plain Truth Revolution. A closer look at the Liberian trouble or the Liberian tale or the Liberian story and its 3 big parties. At the close of this engagement, we will disclose to you the remaining 4 of these 5 recordings and different web locations at which you could find them, along with our many other revolutionary articles and arguments. So we welcome you. But before proceeding, let's please make this clarity which applies to all of our works. That is, all of our many writings, our actions, our speeches, our audio engagements, including this very one that you are listening to, as follows. We're saying, we of the Plain Truth Revolution believe that as a people, as a group of people, we could say as Liberians or as Green Coasters, or just whichever one of these demon names you prefer, although we promote the use of Green Coasters, we now find ourselves at a very critical point in our existence or history as a people, a point at which true servants of God and true patriots must, in our opinion, rise up to take some positively radical steps, putting out some sound, non-political, community-based and grassroots leadership to deliver and put life into our people and our country by the grace of God. A country which has been dead almost always from 1822 to this very point in 2017, and whose dead nature is now producing all of the worst outcomes by the day, with sadly no signs of change in sight as the world around us improves and advances at seriously terrific speed. In such a doomed situation, like what we find ourselves in, however, everyone, every well-meaning citizen, every well-meaning person, every well-meaning group member must make serious strides at fighting to change the situation around for the better, as all of our fate and destinies are tied together, and so we also need to work together collectively to improve our destiny and our fate. President John F. Kennedy once said, slightly paraphrased here, quote, "Any one person can make a difference for his country, and so every one person must try to make this difference," unquote. So, of course, this is our part of way of trying to change our country's nasty fate around by the grace and power of God. And therefore, let it be made clear here that we really are not experts, we're not professionals We don't really know these things that we're doing quite well in any of what we're doing here. That is, the writings, the speeches, the actions that we're taking. These are not things that we got used to earlier. But we've just decided never again to remain neutral or to remain on the sidelines anymore. As such, in some of our audio clips, including this very one, we have decided to engage into some civic lectures, some one-on-one lectures, some lecture talking to the public, talking to our people, with our fellow citizens in the world over. We urge you, therefore, to please just make some sense out of what we're saying, grasp some worthwhile ideas and points from these engagements and arguments, so that we all together can work at making positive change to happen for our country and our people once and for all. It needs sharing of ideas. We're doing ours and we expect people to do theirs, so we blend them together and make change to happen. In some of these audio clips, we will also be reading word for word from speeches that we've prepared to be delivered at certain places during certain events that we've planned. And we'll read them out to you. They are part of this particular publication. We will also be talking and reading more. We'll be getting into more and more of details. We will sometimes use a single piece of fact or reality repeatedly, but to raise separate, distinct arguments. Please be reminded with emphasis here that the particular civic agenda, or this particular civic agenda, is concerned more with details rather than summaries. So please bear with us as we feel convicted that it is now time that we part ways with the old 1822 to 2017 Liberian tradition of always bringing summary and taking shortcuts. We believe everything has a time and a purpose under this heaven. People had to pass through details before they got to the shortcut stage. If you don't understand the details, how will you understand the shortcuts? We believe in Sir Isaac Newton's third law of motion when it says that to every action there must be an equal and opposite reaction. And so we're saying the great lies here, the great deceit and the great laziness that have been implanted into this society by the world superpower, the United States of America, since 1816, that have overwhelmed and entrenched themselves into our brains, our bloodstream, and every aspect of our lives, must now be countered or combated with massive truth-telling and detailing of the other side of this ever criminally abbreviated Liberian story. We believe Liberia is so plagued with the biggest social problem and troubles of our times, in fact of all times. This is because you have problems implanted by the world's greatest country or the world's superpower. We further believe that every document that we're doing, including the speeches we're making about our country, is all intended for our use and for the use of all future generations coming after us. That is, we're not doing these things just for our own use or for our own pleasure. We're saying everything we're putting together now will be used by all of the generations that will live after, that will come after us until God comes back to judge our world. So we're saying it is now time for a new culture of detailing all of our thoughts, ideas, and problems. Thank you again. Now let's go straightway into business. The main issue we're going to be discussing in this audio clip is how to make the best out of the only country, the only land, the only home that God has blessed us with, by first establishing all of the key facts and truths about this country, no matter how painful and how harsh these truths and realities are, and how difficult it is to force them out. To kick things off, however, history says our tribal forefathers, the Bassas, the Dees, the Crews, the Fives, etc., started coming to settle down here almost 10 centuries back, or more than 900 years ago. Someone therefore will wonder, wow, what then have we been doing all these long years that our country still looks so dirty, so disorganized, so dysfunctional, and so undeveloped? as it sadly is up to this point? The answer, of course, is that true, we've been making some efforts. We've been trying to transform throughout these long years. But very, very slowly, owing to many things standing in our way to ever grow. And this audio clip will make us to understand those basic things that are standing in our way that we must get rid of before we can make any progress. If not, another 10 centuries will come and will still remain. In fact, we'll get worse off. That's how life can be. So one strong point to make here before we continue is that the man who created all of us human beings, that is our God Almighty, He designed life in some mysterious but orderly way. They may seem mysterious to us, but orderly way in His reading. But one of these orderly and mysterious ways being for certain people to be given light before the others, so that through these certain people, fellow human beings can receive light and be light unto themselves, while in turn provide light to others in the same way. So it's like John Brown, you have light, give it to Peter Paul, let Peter Paul receive light through you, and Peter Paul too is duty bound to pass this light on to another group of people. That's how God, our God, designed life. This process can go on in different forms. Getting this light from God before others, of course, is a privilege and not a right, as no one ever asks God for it before or during their birth. This idea or scenario is similar to what happens in a family, for example, wherein there are big brothers, big sisters, or even parents, people more aged, more educated, more experienced, more exposed, etc., and through whom the rest of the family members, the smaller or younger family members, will have to see light and succeed. This is natural and beyond our human control. And so in terms of the two main races that God has created, that is the white man and the black man, the white man has been designated as a big brother, through whom the black man will see light and succeed. This is just a simplification of realities and concepts. But in each of these cases, nobody ever asked God to be that big brother or big sister, or to be that white man or that black man. Nobody ever worked towards it, as they are ascribed, as the big book people may say, and gaining seniority, superiority, or upper hand through these kinds of ascribed statuses is just a privilege and not a right in the sight of God. The big problem all through history, all through mankind's history though, is that human beings are just always good at abusing privileges in many respects, unless they are guided, restricted, brought to book, or resisted depending on the situation. In the white and black man scenario, for example, the whites have used this privilege both ways too. That is, either helping to bring light to the black man, to develop him, and in other cases, being bent on suppressing the black man to keep him perpetually as a slave or some personal property, using different methods, some direct and some indirect. So you see, the white man uses his privilege two ways. If you're lucky, or if you're blessed or fortunate, they will use it to develop you to their standards, because they take you to be another fellow human being. They will feel that they're just playing, or they are playing some divine role that has been told, that they've been told to play, or they will abuse this privilege and just take you onto themselves as personal property. So we should watch out for those two scenarios. All of us being God's children, however, whether blacks or whites, He gave us some intellect to distinguish right from wrong, to determine who is in our favor and who is against us, to determine what approaches are working for us and which concepts are working against us, and stuff like that. And when we find out that a people or their concepts, no matter those people's color, their age, their seniority, or any other leverage they have over us, are working against us, the only way to go is to ask our referee, our creator, our God Almighty for knowledge, courage, wisdom, guidance, and strength to resist such people and their concepts working against us, so that we begin to stand on our own 2 feet, which is the new destiny and final level that God wants for all of his children to reach. That's how come we can read and hear about such things or such activities as independent struggle. You must gain that status before you truly begin to enjoy the many benefits that God has designed for his children. But you can't be under people and expect to enjoy those benefits. Once you're not independent, you can never do anything correct for yourself. Even your own life, what you eat will be dictated to you by another person. Africa, the black man continent, had a serious taste of this struggle against her seniors, the white man, mainly in the mid-20th century. This is not because the white man is bad, but because, as we mentioned earlier, we human beings just naturally enjoy abusing privileges, and unless we are adequately checkmated. And the God that created us has decreed that we will acquire everything good, including our own freedom and independence, as we talk about, to think and act for ourselves through the sweat of our brows. In a social context from which we speak here, we will automatically have to struggle with those sitting over our huge talents, potentials, and resources here, especially here in the name of running government and having all the international partners in this world, if we are to ever score any substantial mark as a people in this place. If not, nothing will work. Once we are being dictated to do everything for ourselves, even fighting corruption, somebody from out has to tell you. What to eat, somebody has to tell you. We will never make any mark as a people. And as we'll explain in a little more detail ahead, let's remember that our God Almighty, according to many books of scriptures, was the first to fight against the abuse of privilege when he drove Lucifer or Satan out of heaven for his decision, that is Satan's decision, to abuse the huge privilege that God had given him. Coming back home to our Liberian scenario or situation, the American man has been our part of Simeon, our part of white men working with us, again either to honestly develop us to their level as a divine assignment, or to dishonestly abuse privilege and subject us to being their slaves and guinea pigs forever unless brought to book or resisted. And from all indications, fellow citizens and all those listening to me in Radio Land, the Americans, have sadly chosen this second bad choice, to use us as their guinea pigs forever. Another key point to note again is that the white man will in many cases not accomplish these negative sides of his privilege abuse agenda directly. They don't do it directly. They don't come directly in many cases. They have different formulas to use, including even using some of ourselves against ourselves. Listen to that image. Again, in the Liberian case, we suffered the transatlantic slave trade at the hands of the white men for centuries, when our predominantly smartest and strongest able-bodied men and women were coercively taken away from our land to go and serve the white men. This clearly crippled our capacity to ever develop, and was another abuse of privilege on the part of the white man against us. Then after several centuries, the whites decided to stop this kind of cruel dealing with fellow human beings. Although it was benefiting them so tremendously, they deserve a pat on the back for coming to the senses in this case. However, because these benefits have been so rich and difficult to let go completely, smartly deceitful America decided to apply different formulas to keep enjoying these sweet privilege abuse benefits one way or the other, but this time around, in our case, using the very blacks that they themselves have ostracized out of their society to now become the conduit for their privilege abuse. And this has been a sad case here since 1822 up to this point. And so these deported American blacks, the ones we call the Congo boys today, already predominantly criminal in nature, thus becoming a good match or fit for such a job. Along with a few contracted natives, all of them working through the white-collar terrorist organization called Government of Liberia in this place, are the ones doing the dirty work for the Americans against the ethnic or tribal communities, the huge ethnic or tribal communities of this place. This sad story is long, so by the close of this engagement, we will refer you to the different areas and documents that you must find to provide you more details about how the Americo-Liberians, through their structure here called GOL or Government of Liberia, are helping America to suppress and oppress the blacks that are here, to continue to remain their slaves and personal property forever, while other human beings elsewhere on the globe advance and make huge progress. With respect to this issue of white men abusing privilege, which almost the whole of Africa took up some time to exclusively fight against, again not because whites are bad, but because this is a mysterious human nature which must be cross-checked and disciplined or restrained. We the people of this country have got no record of ever formally engaging in a struggle to tell the white man to excuse our lives or excuse us to do some things for ourselves independently. That's how dangerous our situation is. That is, everything we need to do here, somebody must give us some permission. You can have all your clear intentions. By the time you assume the thing we call leadership here, you must be dictated to. If not, you find that your dead body will be found. Let's put it in the Liberian parlance. So, our part of white seniors, the Americans, have succeeded in entrenching themselves so imperially into our veins and our bloodstream, to the sad point that they seem to be in complete control of our God-given destinies in this life forever. Again, not directly for us to see, or especially for ordinary person to see on the surface. The good news, however, is that everything has a season and a time to every purpose under the heaven, as the Bible says. So the point we think, or God is instructing us, has reached through God's grace for us, especially of the 16 tribal communities of this country, to now engage the same struggle that our friends in places like Kenya, Ghana, Nigeria, Benin, Ivory Coast, etc. engaged in years back, to have an opportunity to think and act for themselves too as human beings. But our part of struggle does not necessarily have to entail or involve the same kinds of actions and struggles that those friends of ours had to use, as times have greatly changed since then. So a conscious few of us, citizens of this country, have now been inspired by God under the banner, the Plain Truth Revolution, to lead the process for our part of independent struggle in this place by the grace of God. People may argue that there's no need to engage such a process since we have some semblance of sovereignty here. But the raw fact remains that yes, we are grateful to God that we do have a defined territorial space or confines. But every sound or level-headed person knows that we don't sadly have any valid social contract. And there's no sound management and leadership structure in place yet. Or to put it another way, we have no reliable and sustainable working systems and institutions as yet in this place, all of which are only the products or fruits of true independence and sovereignty, things that we don't have yet. And sadly, what we call Liberia, in its 194 years of being around as a political entity or so-called political entity, has not achieved these conditions and statuses yet, or because it was never set up to pursue these kinds of agenda. It was set up for a different sad purpose, ladies and gentlemen, as your engagements all through with the Plain Truth Revolution will establish to you the key reasons for which this funny arrangement was set up in 1822. While our part of seniors, our part of white big brothers, that God directed us to one way or the other to see light through, which are the Americans, have been doing here is to put us under the deceitful impression that we do have some independence, or we do have independence and are enjoying sovereignty, while behind the scenes they completely control our huge God-given potentials and our destiny. That's how sad and terrible this situation is. But as we said earlier, and we will keep repeating it, they do not do these things directly for the ordinary eyes to see it that way. They instead use people among us to accomplish this devilish goal on their behalf, and their first choice are people who terribly lack self-pride and believe more in material gains and fame rather than principles and morals. These are their good foot soldiers. In the Liberian case, our seniors, who have turned modern day slave masters, use some institutions set up here by them and their surrogates in 1822. And their surrogates referred to here are the Americo-Liberians, that they call the government of Liberia. This is a conduit they use to do their job. With the passage of time, our white slave masters, America, have become very cunning in their strategy to keep us as their slaves and perpetual animals forever, forgetting to know or ignoring the indisputable reality that they are abusing the divine privilege that God has given them to provide light for fellow human beings to survive and prosper elsewhere on the globe. Wrapping up on this abuse of privilege issue, as we earlier promised, we were going to throw a little light on it. Many of our religious accounts have it that the first abuser of God-given privilege was Lucifer, the devil. And just as we have been sufficiently discussing how some whites, especially Americans in Liberia's case, use different subtle and cleverly deceitful means to dump or kill their victims, devil in heaven was using different cleverly crafted means to fool his victims into contaminating their allegiance to God and to worship him either directly or indirectly at times instead. The solution pattern to his scheme, or the devil's scheme of course, was for angels first to resist him. And with his stubbornness and insistence, as he's a very clever guy, God himself helped to drive him out of heaven as an option of last resort. If we connect the dots well, interfacing our spiritual and social insights, this is what happened between some whites and those blacks that had to struggle with them for their independence. That is, he had to take resistance at times, or he had to take the sad but bold step of driving the whites away at other times in order to get the white abusers of privilege off many Africans back. Again and again, let's sound this warning that we don't emphasize these strong points over and over to mean that whites are bad. They are undoubtedly the ones that nature has designated for the huge black segment of mankind to see light through. And of course, many blacks, for that matter, have really seen light as a result of some whites' honest and sincere obedience to the divine instruction to spread God's light to the rest of humanity. And we must appreciate and honor the whites, our white brothers, forever in this direction. The other point worth underlining here in the opposite direction is that some whites, being human beings, have on many occasions to gone beyond the instruction to abuse their privilege, and wherever that unfortunate and negative human behavior crept in, the only solution has been to resist them first, or as an option of last resort, to drive them off, as we have repeatedly mentioned. Having made all these strong points clear, let's drive back to our argument that the American men's structure, set up here called Liberia, and its operating arm called Government of Liberia, that is hiring black contractors under the leadership and guidance of the Americo-Liberians, of the Americo-Liberian surrogates, called Americo-Liberians. Let's go back to this point. Having made these strong points clear, let's drive back to our argument that the American men's structure set up here called Liberia, and its operating arm called the Government of Liberia, that is hiring contractors here after every 6 months through some process we call election, under the leadership of their surrogates called Americo-Liberians is not well foundationed. This structure, meaning this structure is not well foundationed, and in fact it is invalid and illegitimate, thereby making it incumbent upon God's children, especially those of indigenous backgrounds who have seen the white man's light, to now break this illegitimate structure, i.e. Liberia, down to rebuild a different, well-intended and well-foundationed civic structure. So in short, what we're saying here is this particular civic structure that America set up here called Liberia and its operating arm called GOL are all illegitimate, and it's now time for God's children to break it down. So along the lecture and while going through our many articles written and otherwise, you will get to know what we mean by breaking a civic foundation down to rebuild it. And that's the challenge that we have now at hand. Let's not forget that just as God's children can achieve massive feat, like the kind of feat we are about to achieve here now, devil also can achieve massive feat like what he has been achieving here all along since 1822. And the only way to put an end or halt to devil's feet is for God's children to stand up tall against devil's arguments and clever designs. For Christians, just read 2 Corinthians 10, starting from verses 4 going upwards, to see how the devil comes with this part of arguments and wants to fly those arguments far above God's arguments. And it's our duty to bring down those strongholds of the devil, that is, bring down his argument and put God's argument above it. This is our time to stand up tall and resist this feat of the devil, flourishing in this place through Liberia and her GOL since 1822, so that our huge masses of God's suffering children in this country are liberated once and for all from the trick and deceit of the devil, so that our heavily cheated and marginalized people can begin to experience and to live on flourishing in a newfound experience what the true meaning of life is, instead of keep languishing in a state of mere existence rather than living on this planet, just because less than 1% of the human beings in this country deserve all of the good out of life at the detriment of the remaining 99.9%, etc. But to succeed in this huge agenda, we must use massive truth-telling, that's a way of submitting to God, in awareness creation. Remember James 4:7 says we must submit to God first before we resist the devil. So as we're about to resist the devil in our lives, that is this fake arrangement that you can pile up criminals from America South and come and dump them on this soil and they can civilize and Christianize this part of Africa. This is an argument from the devil's belly. But to succeed in this huge agenda, we must use massive truth-telling and awareness creation to place everybody in gear for change. We must identify all of the problems in details and identify with honesty all the parties to the problem. We must be able to sincerely apportion some blame to each of the major parties to this problem, so as to establish some guilt as a good beginning point for identifying faults and apportioning blames honestly and responsibly among parties, especially conflicting parties, will among other things help to dig out all of the truths about the problem through some massive debate, and will also help to neutralize the defensive positions and resistance of those who are dug in the heels to keep this particular wrong and false way of conducting human activities and affairs here intact, just because it works best in their interests. Consequently, the three key parties, as the title of this particular audio clip dictates, to this dangerously funny Liberian nightmare are 1. the United States of America, 2. the Americo-Liberians, and 3. the natives, as we have been sufficiently clarifying. Now, to try to convince you, fellow listeners, our country, our citizens, our world at large, by the grace of God, about the burden that we have as children of God, to say or talk the truth, no matter whom it is against, whether against ourselves or our own interests somehow. Let me take this time to inform you in clear terms about my personal connection to each of these three dismally performance parties in our Liberian hula battle before continuing with additional arguments. So I say number one, the United States of America. Personally, I, Ruler Kati, is the vision bearer of this particular agenda through God's grace, not because I have any strength on my own. I personally can safely tell anyone with pride that of the over 200 independent states and territories in our whole wide world, no nation and people have impacted my life for the exactly 40 years that I've been around for on this planet equal to the Americans. Beginning right at the very point of my dear mom's conception with me, peace be unto her ashes, up to the highest height of my few years of professional life thus far, that got terribly disrupted by my Americo-Liberian bosses in January of 2013. I am particularly conscious and grateful for the role played by former U.S. Peace Corps volunteer Mr. Mitchell Markowitz in ensuring my personal well-being and sustenance during my mom's pregnancy and maternity when she was struggling with a high school education in the mid to late 1970s in San Nicolas County. Moreover, apart from my father, Mr. Takbokati, having been extensively trained by U.S. Peace Corps volunteers in the 1960s, concepts and principles from these trainings or experiences and opportunities which he inculcated into us as children during our early childhood. I also personally remember life-saving experiences with a few very friendly and productive Americans that I encountered during my school days, one of which was when I sat under the voice of reportedly volunteer and retired U.S. Naval officer Mr. Charles Pitchford of the U.S. Monrovia Embassy, who taught us our small business management course at the University of Liberia in the early 2000s. Never before were my sensitivities and consciousness or awareness for the importance of entrepreneurship, innovation, and small business to the survival and prosperity of any serious-minded people or nation ever kindled or sharpened than was done under the voice or teachings of Mr. Charles Pitchford. Still further, for my few years of professional life thus far, my separate experiences with Kenyan American Mr. Kamal M. Leisure and the Ojivan American Mr. Sophie Hobbs, both of the UCGMA program of 2006 to 2010 in Liberia, are highly cherished and very memorializing. The imprints of the efforts of these two Americans on my professional life have been amazingly far-reaching. Sophie has links with both the states of Virginia and Georgia, as I understand, while Kamal comes from Florida. My very boss, under whose watch I served, my last employer up to the eruption of the schism or current split between me and them. That is Mr. John Momolu Dukley, a Liberian, or as I like to put it, a green coaster though, is a proud product of the state of New Jersey in the United States of America. Even still further, in all of the work done thus far in our plaintive revolutionary sojourn and endeavor, we have repeatedly paid serious homage to great American presidents in our readings, great American governmental institutions, and great American individual citizens, with emphasis laid on revered characters such as Presidents George Washington, Abraham Lincoln, Franklin Delano Roosevelt, John Fitzgerald Kennedy, Lyndon B. Johnson, and Barack Obama. Even as our criticisms of America or our opposition to them for what's happening, the terrible things happening in our country, are so tough and unbending in these debates to liberate our people by the grace of God, it will interest you to still discover that some of our very strong motivators do include such individual American citizens as Mr. Hezekiah Niles of Chester County, Pennsylvania, Smedley Darlington Butler, he too comes from Pennsylvania, Dr. James Simon of New York, Mr. Joe M. Sullivan of Massachusetts, Dr. Ibrahim K. Sondiata, he teaches at the Brandeis University, Noam Chomsky, former U.S. former U.S. ambassador to Liberia, Madam Deborah Malak, current U.S. Liberia Embassy official, Madam Sheila Paskman, and the list goes on. 2. On personal link with the Americo-Liberians. Despite the fact that Americo-Liberians repeatedly refer to my tribal forefathers as pigs, dogs, elephants, and wild animals of all sorts, and not human beings, and they still continue to treat us as such today, in different, sometimes subtle manners. I do have some of the best friends among Americo-Liberians, and I even once had a cherished coupling or love relationship, as one may call it, with a strong, beautiful, and productive Americo-Liberian female. Miss Massa Kennedy and her family members are mentioned in many of our acknowledgement sessions, or the acknowledgement sections of our plea to revolutionary works. Furthermore, among several good Americo-Liberian friends that could open their doors for me wide at any time, even at midnight, no matter my condition, include such people as Mrs. Alita K. Hoff, Mr. S. Arthur P. Harris II, Mr. Alexander C. Knuckles, former Bowman County Senator Richard B. Define, Mr. Timothy Holt, Mr. Bobby Brown, Mr. Andrew Gibson, and so on. Even as we design this revolutionary agenda to fight to bring to an end this 194-year pitiful, painful, and bloody Americo-Liberian hegemony and dominance in our lives and our country by God's power, we have made emphatic mentions of the productive and constructive natures and contributions of such Americo-Liberian actors as President William R. Talbot, deceased, Mr. Harry A. Greaves Jr., deceased, then Mr. Edward Dunn and Mr. Simon Freeman, among others who are alive and continue to exert strenuous efforts at bringing positive change to this society. But the evil design laid here by their forefathers in 1822 will not give them, or will never give them, such chance, and will continue to brutally brush them aside, since Liberia was not designed or established for productive and objective reasons and people, as alluded to once by Senator Thomas Groupie of Nima County. Remember, our Senator Groupie said it, that Liberia was not designed for objective people and objective thinking. How sad. 3. On personal connections to the third group of these morally performing parties, which are the natives, the aboriginals, or indigenous, as others would call it. As a matter of personal connection, this is the very group to which I belong. This huge mass of 16 indigenous African ethnic groups, which America and her Americo-Liberians continue to work out every policy behind the scenes under the canopy of running some government here through some structure called Government of Liberia to suppress and oppress forever. As I said earlier, we were called animals, elephants, wild pigs, and the likes from the very beginning of their Liberia, and up to this date, we continue to be treated as such, using different formulas to maintain the status quo. The proofs of these very strong claims, these deadly claims, can be found in our plea to revolutionary works, which we will encourage every citizen, everyone now, every interested human family member to find these with ease and read. With my personal attachment or connection as the vision bearer of the plea to revolution to these three parties, these three big parties, to the Liberian supermess now well established, let's now bring you some small details about the different funny roles played and the different shares of blames held by each of these three big parties to this ever-enduring Liberian nightmare. But first, it is very crucial for you to come to know that when it comes to the issues of fighting to clean up society, when it comes to fighting to correct entrenchedly wrong things and arguments, when it comes to the issue of fighting to put up an honest advocacy for the ultimate liberation of God's enslaved children, when it comes to making a case for future generations to have reliable hope for survival and making progress in life, when it comes to building the strongest of cases for true independence and sovereignty, when it comes to the issue of honoring our obligation as children of God, to ensuring that your Creator's principles or our Creator's principles are lifted far above those sly and factious deceits and arguments of the devil, and just anything that has to do with country and people, etc. There is nothing like shying away from the blunt reality, from the raw facts, no matter the consequences attached to telling it as raw as it is. In fact, the whole issue of country is just about sacrificing blood, sweat, and tears, and nothing called silver bullet or silver platter is anticipated in solving huge societal problems. When injustice and all of its vices and lieutenants against human survival and progress overwhelm a people like what's happening in this place called Liberia, the only first and viable option left to a people in fighting the problem head on is to search for and expose all the truths and facts, because in the end it is only the truth that leads to justice, and justice leads to peace, with peace too, and which too comes with a huge range of dividends or benefits, including human development, rule of law, respect for human rights, and social stability. Having said that, we get back on course with the issue of briefly touching on the roles played and the blames borne or shared by each of these three dismally performing parties to the Liberian trouble or embarrassment, beginning here again with the great United States of America. This is undoubtedly the world's greatest country, or one of the world's greatest country, as I really love to put it, and the world's biggest democracy. Americans, as individual persons, according to many accounts, and from my own little experience thus far in life, are some of the most hospitable, kindest, honest, and productive people on the face of this planet when acting as individuals. But acting as a government or acting through other institutions with their economic and or business interests, and with their ultra-national and super ambitious desire to rule the world with no equals, America can be some of the most savage, barbaric, and unconscionable entity that anyone can ever think about. America being considered the greatest in our reading here does not mean, that's why I tried to make it clarity earlier, that they are the only greatest country. In fact, as the book people can say it today, our planet has now become a multipolar world with many great powers around that work almost exactly the same wonders that America can work. Take for example the big 5 members of the UN Security Council. These are all giants in their own respects that can make or break the world just as anytime as America thinks you can do too. But as other great nations like France, Britain, and other European powers have taken up time to constructively colonize and mentor other countries and territories to maturity, America has got no convincing record in this direction. As far as the United States is concerned, everything good in this life should be for America, America, and America, and so she passes around deceitfully, acting like she's working for the general good of the global community or for humanity in general. But behind the scenes, the objective and goal of almost every global action of America is to ensure and is to secure and sustain America's superiority and Godship above all else. Nothing more, nothing less. Moreover, because America is originally and practically a white nation or white society, this rulership and superiority goal pushes us so much that all through history and to this very date, blacks have been considered by them as mere subhumans and inferior human beings in many respects also. It is all this and many more bad sides of this America that unfortunately went into the establishment of Liberia, beginning with that fateful December 1816 meeting held by those almost all antebellum Southern America slave owners, farmers, and racist businessmen, giving birth to their so-called American Colonization Society, which will eventually argue that black hardcore criminals, when rounded up cleverly, could be systematically shipped to Africa to come and Christianize and civilize our continent. Oh, what a terrible argument. Since this great criminal mistake and miscalculation was done by the great United States of America through their ACS, thus laying that phony foundation for the most unconscionable and iniquitous relationship in the history of mankind to be established between us and this great world superpower. The result of this relationship has been a very ridiculous and disastrous one every step of the way for the exactly 200 years now. In fact, this phony connection made by America here has been a source of unspeakable disgrace to the superpower herself, which for the sake of dishonestly sucking the vast economic and other resources of this place has continued to violate every civilized law, tenet, and common sense. Liberia's evil temptation and attraction has derived from this corrupt and cursed U.S.-Liberia historical tie, has made America to continue to disgracefully commit all kinds of sins and immoralities or iniquities, some of which can be listed here as follows, just to take responsibility of our burden of proof. Remember, you who accuse, you who make the statement, must be able to clearly provide all of the proofs. So we say this relationship has been rotten and has caused America to perform some of the most disgraceful acts ever imagined of a world superpower. Or one of these disgraceful acts. It's worth noting that December 1816 meeting to establish the ACS, or American Colonization Society, to dump criminal black elements on another people's productive soil, which is our soil, became an action which, in the reading of the very U.S. Congress in February 1817, according to the Nias Weekly Register of April 12, 1817, constituted, listen, that means the U.S. Congress itself agreed that act by the ACS constituted some gross crime against humanity. When Congress herself correctly predicted that where these criminal black subjects of theirs will be dumped will eventually turn into a place or a land of aggravated mischief, a society of aggravated mischief. That's how they predicted how their Liberia would be way back in 1817. Is this not a crime against humanity? B. America refused to recognize Liberia's Mickey Mouse independence for up to 15 years on grounds meaning that the people they deported to this place, which were now claiming this so-called independence from the business NGO called ACS, were criminals that lacked every iota of self-governance and could never manage their own affairs even in a billion years' time. That's how they felt. That's what they argue. But sadly, for the sake of gaining some unfair business or economic upper hand over other European powers that were doing business with dull criminal Liberia at the time, the United States disgracefully swallowed its earlier vow and came back to recognize Liberia's fake independence as is cleverly being depicted in the February 5, 1862 edition of the New York Times newspaper. C. Just to get rid of these free black criminals that were reportedly taking advantage of some U.S. government proclamation and terrorizing the American society, the U.S. government authorized the commission of armed robbery by its own naval officer, Mr. Robert Field or Captain Robert Field Stockton of the USS Alligator warship. When this man put our tribal forefather on a gunpoint to seize our piece of land, Cape Mesurado, so as to dump these unwanted black Americans, thus beginning the establishment and onward sustenance of their dull-filled state called Liberia from here. This was a gross crime against humanity also, and it continues to be sustained by America up to this point. Wikipedia narrates this Battlefield Stockton's armed robbery account of Cape Mesurado, fellow citizens, fellow listeners. D. The U.S. government and her American Colonization Society knew or know very well that a mass of ethnic Africans were on ground here. In fact, a group of people from whom the Americans themselves, in their own words, claim they bought land from to dump their terribly unwanted blacks between 1822 and the 1840s and 1850s. But this same America, her ACS, encouraged their free blacks to declare and treat us as mere animals who didn't deserve any input or participation or even recognition in the arrangement of a new civic structure in what is now called Liberia today. Ladies and gentlemen, the prestigious Harvard Law School was used to guide this unconscionable process of totally excluding the indigenous people in all civic arrangements in this place, as is being accounted for by such historians as Dr. Joseph Segwani, Dr. James Simon, and Professor Neil Hahn, etc. Sadly, it is products from the same prestigious Harvard University in names such as Ellen Johnson Sirleaf that people from indigenous backgrounds in this country are still counting on to ever serve their interest, as if our God can ever be mocked. The U.S. government has always known that a very huge community of Aboriginals has existed in this place and continues to exist here, because history itself has fought to always make this clarity to everyone. It is, for example, an elementary fact that our tribal forefathers started migrating to this place centuries and centuries back. But in a blatant disregard of this strong historical fact, the American government has all along stood by the side of a few deported criminals and their descendants called Americo-Liberians in wreaking havoc on this huge native community. The U.S. government has been doing so to the point of even sending her official warships to kill our native people on behalf of the Americo-Liberians. Each time, little domestic quarrels erupted between these two almost ever opposing communities. History is replete with these accounts. Some of U.S. government approved warships sent against our poor defenseless natives to waste their blood on behalf of the Americo-Liberians or the Congo boys have included such vessels as the Goro Noma, the USS Chester, the Schooner, and the list goes on. From 1822 to this new millennium, every major domestic bloodshed, every civil war, every major event that has caused substantial loss of blood and life to this country, including coup d'etats, national riots, major epidemics, etc., has also had American connection one way or the other. We have documented this strangely negative phenomenon in our works, in many of our works for that matter. As hugely respectable as America is supposed to be in the issues of handling justice around the world, America does have a different, funny and condescending way of handling issues of justice pertaining to Liberian elements. Classical examples include cases pertaining to the broad day murders of certain Liberian presidents E.J. Roy, William Richard Talbot, and Samuel Canyon Doe. Then they are on record again for disgracefully handling justice pertaining to Liberian subjects such as Charles Taylor, Chucky Taylor, George Bully, and Tom Woyovu, among others. Then, of course, one of the greatest bullets shot to the head of justice pertaining to this place of late is how our Truth and Reconciliation Commission's recommendations and instructions have now been killed with American support one way or the other against the blood and wishes of our over 500,000 persons killed in this country for American interest, and the millions now scattered into exile, not to mention those whose lives have been directly set far back, all just for Wall Street to come back or to come and take hold of their oil resource. Of course, the last remaining important one now of our several precious natural resources is this funny criminal relationship between Liberia and the United States just keeps making this great world power, cherished by all of us, to continue swooping down so low to ground level and disgracing herself just for material gains. One major case in point these few days is this issue or news of the United States State Department's decision to ever approve a financial package of US $256.7 million awarded through the Millennium Challenge Corporation in prize money for some so-called governance or good governance and good economic management on the part of the government of Liberia. The same US State Department, meanwhile, is on record for painting some of the bleakest and gloomiest pictures of the enduringly terrible Liberian nightmare in her many reports on this country, including her regular country reports on human rights, her trafficking in persons report, her embassy travel alert report, and so forth. All of which persistently and consistently continue to depict Liberia as the worst place to live on this planet due to lack of justice, lack of governance, and unspeakable corruption. In fact, the same US State Department knows all about Liberia's numerous other criminal activities, a very small sample of which can be presented here as follows. 1. The Global Financial Integrity Group's ranking of Liberia as the world's second most notorious country with respect to the illicit outflow of money, according to the front page Africa Online and allafrica.com in 2015. This was no secret to the US State Department when she was approving this $256.7 million in prize money to the government of Liberia for their splendid performance at governance, quote-unquote, in the same 2015. 2. The U.S. Justice Department, through its Foreign Agents Registration Act, or FARA, has been explicitly exposing Liberian government's illegal dishing out of hundreds of millions of US dollars to powerful Washington, D.C. based law and commercial diplomacy firms in the name of international image building and criminal public relations campaigns. 3. More than 50,000 non-residential companies have been criminally created and registered under Liberian government official stamp to the non-existent address of 80 Broad Street, Monrovia, Liberia, and more than 3,500 commercial ships registered under Liberian flagship, etc., with all the revenues from these multi-billion-dollar business activities criminally going instead yearly to a private American company that sits and runs from the heart of the US military facilities in the state of Virginia. This is according to George Turner of the Finance Uncovered UK and other sources including the OECD. 4. The US Department of State knows very well that this Liberia has been booked by the Tax Justice Network's Financial Secrecy Index to be criminally among the less than 9 countries in our whole wide world that have never passed the OECD's Global Forum for Tax and Transparency peer review test, a reason for which this rogue or criminal country now falls on the blacklist of tax havens of many European nations and is even being described now by others like Brazil as a privileged tax haven. Why would they not call it privileged tax haven? Because it's a tax haven that was set up by America. This is according to the African report. So our part of country was just established for criminal reasons and it's supposed to be run by criminals, and so everybody living in it should be criminals. Then we have churches everywhere in the corner, mosques everywhere in the corners. Are these not the things that God said we will be judged against? Do we leave all of these things and expect that we are going to heaven? We will pause here. But this US government that has dished out these hundreds of millions of dollars to the Liberian government in prize money for so-called splendid performance through the MCC does emphatically know many more horrible accounts of the level of dishonesty and criminality that has sunk this country down the ocean floor. But she decided to blatantly ignore all of these nasty facts owing to an impaired vision derived from the love of materials beyond those of principles. We don't know how else can a whole people ever be disgraced, abused, and kicked in the ass like what America is doing here to us, using the so-called government of Liberia as a criminal conduit, as everyone can now see that some of the nastiest sins and iniquities against a whole people and their future are being committed by the US and their criminal accomplices, the Americo-Liberians here. When one looks at it critically, we the people of this particular part of Africa called Liberia are suffering serious double jeopardy at the hands of this superpower. That is, during the transatlantic slave trade that we talked about earlier, they came and took, during the transatlantic slave trade that took place on this continent for centuries, as we mentioned earlier, America benefited from the labor of our productive blacks that were forced out of here into slavery in a white man's home. This event, in a sense, set our own process of growth and sustenance far back, as elements captured from among us during those long centuries were undoubtedly some of the best brains, talents, and labor predominantly. Then, after long centuries of these people serving America at our expense and detriment, America again picked the few criminal and unproductive elements that had developed among these people in those centuries and decided to cohesively dump them over us, to rule over our destinies and potentials forever, with superpower support at that rate. These are the people we now refer to today as Congo boys or Americo-Liberians. The Johnsons, the Joneses, the McLeans, the Bernards. Every day they come into you and say, apart from your right to live, the next right you have is to vote. So vote them to power. So as everyone can now see, all the numerous and deep-seated problems that we see in our country, our homeland, things cultivated and sustained by this great United States of America herself, and she benefits the spoils from these dirty situations behind the scenes. For as God's children, we just can't afford to keep going like this any longer by His grace. These issues are so many and deadly. That's why our planetary revolution is demanding a national conference as early as possible this 2017, instead of some foolish exercise misusing the beautiful name election. We need a citizens conference where we will sit down and bring these issues to the table for discussion and see how we can handle things after here, instead of people staying online. Our forefathers, all their spirits will come from the grave to fight you. We will fight tooth and nail to ensure that this national conference is held instead of some foolish process called election. Nobody is saying elections are bad. That's a very beautiful democratic tenet, but it's being criminally misused here by people who want to keep this criminal status quo intact, and we will resist it because the Bible has told us to resist the devil. That's how the devil works. The devil is not one boogeyman that comes to you. It works cleverly. It even uses your bare roommate to work against you. But the good news about all of this, all of the worst things that we now know about America's involvement with us is that this place, but the good news about all the worst things we now know about America's involvement with this place is that no matter how deep and nasty the curse of this rotten US-Liberia relationship has grown over the centuries, the United States has matured and developed mentally, psychologically, and otherwise to the point of tolerating all this criticism and doing something about them once they are constructively engaged. That's our unwavering confidence in this America. So while these huge issues we have written, we are speaking, and we are now acting unphysically against this America in a peaceful and constructive manner, however, may seem too big to the eyes or too strong to the ears, thus making them look very impossible to be handled. We like to encourage all of us that this superpower has become so mentally developed and civilized to the point of tolerating any civil opposition and criticisms to heights beyond the understanding and imagination of average and ordinary people. It may interest you to note that America's own subjects and citizens do put up some of the stiffest or fiercest and most aggressive of criticisms against their country under the guidance and protection of their constitution and their moral values. Honesty is a serious moral value in America. Boldness, truthfulness, that we know them for it. For example, some critical and heroic opponents of America's policies or American policies who called spade a spade in this direction include such names as 1. Mr. William Blum. This is an American historian, journalist, author, and very sound foreign policy expert who has for the past 45 years now been a trenchant critic of American bad treatment or America's bad treatment of other people. You can read about him a bit and a few below in our article entitled Our Celebrated Heroes of Change. It's one of our street circulars and they are also online. 2. Abraham Noam Chomsky, Pennsylvania. Mr. Chomsky is a libertarian socialist and reportedly the most important intellectual of our times. This man has been aggressively criticizing U.S. foreign policy actions, ranging from the involvement of the Vietnam War of the 1970s to the Iraq War of 2003. Still other names include Colonel Ira West. He's some reverend or some evangelist or some clergy. Colonel Ira West, Sarah Shays, Darlington Butler, Edward Snowden, and the list goes on. The point we're trying to stress here, of course, is that we can rest assured that the United States will be willing to listen and cooperate with us in finding solutions to this 200-year-old mess that they themselves placed us into here. Once we can be bold and honest to get to the crux of the matter and to constructively get them on board for frank discussions. And this is what the Printing Revolution is currently working on with all of our soul, might, and spirit by the grace and power of our Almighty God. And if we hadn't read enough to theoretically establish these facts about the maturity and boldness of America, even in the face of adversity, we would never have taken up all of our time to go this route as you see us going. That's why on some of our printed placards for civic actions, we have it inscribed, quote, although life has given us 100 reasons to be sad and give up, the involvement of America with our trouble has given us more than 1,000 reasons to celebrate, unquote. This is because we are confident light awaits us at the end of the tunnel, but partly due to this superpower's great deal of honesty and maturity. 2. Then comes part 2 in the Americo-Liberians. For these people, we do now have enough proofs and details about how the United States used 4 terrible adjectives to describe them. Adjectives whose sad reflection can be seen and felt in almost every activity in this country from 1822 to this very date in 2017. And those 4 dangerous adjectives, of course, are 1. Morally lax. So America said the people they were sending here are morally lax. 2. They are mentally inferior. 3. They are criminally oriented. And 4. They are promoters of mischief. For this reason, the 19th century American publisher, Mr. Hezekiah Niles, even narrated how Congress meeting in February 1817 to discuss how to handle their ACS campaign to get rid of these criminal blacks with these kinds of descriptions from America. They, that is Congress, ordered that the land to be found by the ACS for this very iniquitous project should never be closer to any American frontier, because they predicted, that is Congress predicted, a terrible situation for where these people will ever settle. And they didn't want their American expansion to ever reach closer to these kinds of people or to share border with them. Oh, terrible. Imagine all of this. This account of Hezekiah Niles will repeat. For the same reason, and in addition to some damning ones at that rate, after ACS has succeeded in rounding up and dragging out of the U.S. these few selected hardcore black criminals and helping them establish their Liberia in 1822, granting them something called independence in 1847, etc. The U.S. government refused to honor their so-called independence for around 15 years until some corrupt economic motive crept in. What proves these strong points and many other arguments or negative perceptions about the Americo-Liberians quite right, and even proves these criminal black Americans' terrible lack of self-pride, is that after the U.S. government had insulted them to this unimaginable extent, the Americo-Liberians begged America again to come and empower them to be able to oppress, kill, imprison the vast native population of this country for both the benefits of the United States and those of the Americo-Liberians themselves. Terrible. And this superpower, for the sake of its imperialist and other economic motives, agreed to a Congo people's proposal. Thus, the both now established the structure called Liberian government or government of Liberia to go about their mayhem against the natives, the original owners of this land, since these are black people already. In further proof of these grave claims made by the U.S. against the Americo-Liberians, practical realities on ground demonstrate that everything America has been saying, she has been quite right. All of her arguments raised have all been quite right. Let's look at a few examples. A. Americo-Liberians have for the past 194 years now, since 1822, failed to cultivate and demonstrate any moral strength to ever fight crimes, truly proving the point that criminals just can never fight crime. For we are not alone making this kind of claim. The Hardpaper newspaper, for example, in its August 1, 2015 edition, expressed utmost disappointment in Americo-Liberian governments, or the Americo-Liberian government's gross lack of moral rectitude to ever fairly prosecute people for crimes, with the emphasis laid on the current government. B. In further demonstration of their gross lack of governance ability, almost all Americo-Liberian governmental and other institutional activities are characterized by some claimed procedural errors or mistakes, cliches which they use on a daily basis to kill and re-kill all of the native people of this country one way or the other, and to step on our destinies forever. Then 3 comes the share or blame of the natives. The Americo-Liberians managed to convince the U.S. that the natives in this place are not human beings, but mere animals. Proof of this claim abound in our written plain to revolutionary works, as we will always emphasize. And the U.S. government, already with a natural disdain for the black man, quickly bought her deported criminals idea or argument, and both have been working hand in hand to live their dream and claim that we of tribal backgrounds in this country are mere animals. For this reason, we the natives were excluded from the founding of their Liberia because, as obvious, animals don't have any civic idea to share with human beings in laying the foundation of a state. After they established their Liberia without any regards and input from us, the natives, they further said, because we are animals, we should never be admitted into their citizenship. It then took a British company's demand as a precondition for granting dirty poor Liberia loan before we professedly became citizens of Liberia in 1904. And it took the League of Nations lambasting of the Americo-Liberian, the criminal GOL, and even the League's threats to quash Liberia's fake independence before the GOL started building a few miles of dirt roads and few substandard schools and clinics in the tribal people's communities outside of Monrovia or in the hinterland. Shamefully for us, the natives too, after some failed bloody attempts to resist the Americo-Liberians, however, we decided to join them to work against ourselves, all because we wanted to survive and live on. Plus the strong fact that the Congo people have strong American backing, thus making it look impossible for us to ever sustain our resistance against them and succeed. This decision has been an insult to us anyway. So in an institution called Government of Liberia, we the natives, whether consciously or unconsciously, go in there as American contractors along with the Americo-Liberians to work against our own interests. We keep fooling ourselves that with the passage of time, things will ever improve, or God will send down some angels to help us set this nasty record straight. It's just point blank a pity as such to see enterprising natives fighting to join the government of Liberia, thinking that under that structure called GOL, they will ever find some means to make huge societal wide difference. The end result of such efforts, which always turn out to be either a complete conversion of the hearts of such natives to join the criminal bandwagon, or get badly frustrated, or even die, or be deadly targeted if they ever refuse to flow with the Americo-Liberian status quo. So I sometimes hear people with this thwarted notion that natives are in the government of Liberia. In fact, at very top levels, they control some branches of government, and they expect these natives to make such impact or make huge impact on the situation. This in reality can never work. This can never work. This can never work repeatedly, as God is not mocked. Whether people like it or not, Liberia is cursed and doomed, as well as its GOL. And we must break it down and build something new based on honest principles. It is not about country people being head of the legislature, or being head of the judiciary, or head of the executive, or even anything of such. Nothing good will ever happen, because even if they succeed to score any gains, something will intrude and reverse all of those gains. That's how mysterious God works behind the scenes. If people try to ignore, or people fight to ignore his eternal principles and want to do things their own funny, nasty way, if you want to hear for yourself from the word of God yourself, then please read passages like Malachi 1:4. For example, to see how God treated Edom, because they felt they could pay lip service to his word and principles. It's just impossible. God is not mocked. You will run around in circles until the whole world will get so terrible with you, because your situation will not change. The raw fact is that nothing about Liberia and its institutions was ever designed by the natives or in the interest of the natives, and so nothing good they can ever do about it. A hint to the wise should be quite sufficient. Natives are just mere contractors, spoiling their own names here and there, just for survival, something myself have been guilty of in the past out of ignorance, although it didn't go for long. I remember my late LPRC workmate, Mr. Daniel Brochure, CKA Rocking Meat, peace be unto his ashes, always said in the Liberian parlance, "Poo-poo, when not your poo-poo, don't pee-pee-sa it." Meaning, don't urinate beside a pile of feces that does not come from your own stomach, unquote. This exactly applies to what the natives are doing in this place by joining the GOL or government of Liberia at whatever level. So in summary, here is how all of us, the three big parties, the three shamefully performing parties to this ghastly Liberian 194-year tale or nightmare, have all messed up ourselves when it comes to the issue of standing up for and living for genuine principles, a step in life without which we all become very guilty of living like mere animals, just as the Americo-Liberians keep claiming that we of the native backgrounds are. Stepping in the shoes of an impartial disciplinarian, for example, one who address each of the three parties using some form of second person singular or second person plural as follows. Addressing America, that disciplinarian will say, you say the free slaves that you were getting rid of and sending to Africa to colonize and civilize Africa were criminal, dangerous, and unproductive, and were not fit or worth living in your country, even if they were ever rehabilitated, and you drove them out in such an inhumane fashion as you could never deal with them on equal terms. When a business club that deported them on your behalf and took some minimum care of them, called the ECS, decided to grant these people some form of Mickey Mouse independence, you, America, again, vow never to honor such an independence because you never trusted these people's ability to ever govern themselves, as you already knew them to be just pure rogues and weaklings, only good at making mischief. That's why you claim. But then, later, just for the sake of some material gains and other selfish interests, you come after the same people you call criminals and start to do business with them. To add insult to injury, you who claim to honor human dignity so much, fighting for democracy, fighting for human rights, and doing all sort of things using millions and trillions of dollars around the world, you now decide to deviate from this beautiful virtue to join your deported black criminals to begin to wreak havoc physically, mentally, psychologically, and otherwise on the 16 indigenous communities of God's children, our 16 African ethnic groups. You quite know your deported criminals met on ground, and this forced collusion with your deported black criminals or black subjects continue to remain the biggest threat to the lives and well-being of this huge majority of tribal communities of our home from 1822 to this very point. With the negative impact of this collusion between you and Americo-Liberians getting worse and worse by the day and causing serious problems to the world. So, if one were to ask these few simple questions, you America, what would they expect to hear from you as answers? Some of the questions include: 1. America, where is your principal mindedness in light of this whole Liberian scenario that both bigger and smaller nations should emulate your example in? Since indeed you are considered a global front runner in issues of leadership and governance. B. Uncle Sam, where are the traces and marks of your superpower civilization in all this Liberian story? C. Uncle Sam, where is then a demonstration of your love for democracy beyond your borders? Since democracy, we know, it's just more about the development of human beings or the human person. No matter where they are, no matter who they are, democracy is about developing a human being. So where is this love you have for democracy that you pass all around the world claiming? B. Americo-Liberians. A disciplinarian who address the Americo-Liberians through this way: you are a shame or an embarrassment unto yourself, you Americo-Liberians. Your so-called stepmother or mother, America, used all sorts of dangerous adjectives on you and drove you out of their home so shamefully like animals after you have served them free of charge for centuries upon centuries and dumped you on this part of Africa that you didn't even know, that you didn't even belong to originally. When you are checked, when you are well checked, when these accounts are well checked, you don't even belong to this part of Africa. All because they were so pressed against the wall to get rid of you at all costs. Imagine, half of the crew on Elizabeth the Mayflower died from mosquitoes and other strange health conditions. But America, that loves her citizens, or love her subjects, or loves human beings, did not call for the balance to be sent back, since land was not yet gotten. They insisted that even if it cost everybody ownership to die, they should die, but they should never return. To the point that Ralph is talking how to unwrap and get Cape Messerado to dump the balance. Oh, Americo-Liberians, don't you know all of these accounts? And regardless for now of how you got that little piece of land, Cape Messerado, that you started living on, at least you now found yourself among your own African brothers and sisters. Let's forget about other things that happen, of the same complexion, the same kind, after being disgraced by your white master to this extent, who even in a billion years time would never believe that anything good can ever come from out of you. Don't you know that America knows that nothing good can ever come from out of you? Is it strange? Then instead of looking back at where you came from and the experience you had there, as you sufficiently narrated some of these experiences in your so-called Declaration of Independence, and the kind of challenge that has now been thrown at you to develop yourself, to prove yourself that you can make it on your own, and then to try to do things differently to prove your masters, your deporters, your detractors, your enemies, you can call them your enemies, wrong, then ironically and disgracefully for yourselves, you prove them quite right by coming conniving with these same people again to suppress your own fellow blacks from your own claimed original home. And you continue to do just that up to this point in 2017, failing to realize that these very negative actions of yours against your own people absolutely prove your deporters and your detractors or your enemies quite right for all of the adjectives they have ever used against you. They describe you morally lax, mentally inferior, criminally oriented, promoters of mischief. Still you work with these people to suppress the guilds, the bastards, the manners, the bandits, and you are doing it today up to this point. And these very negative actions will have their own way of coming back at you fourfold than what is happening now to happen. That what is happening now through the grace of God beginning this 2017. They will come back. These actions will come back at you because God is not more. Every way you have been ill-treating fellow human beings in this place, you will pay back. Shame on you, Americo-Liberians, for you have behaved like you were not created by God too. You are not created in God's image. You are not created just as the American man was created. Even though you have to see the light through them, or they have this edge over you because God made them to give you light, or to see light before you. It doesn't in any way mean that you are so insignificant to the point of bowing to men rather than knowing God for yourself. Then for the natives or aboriginals, including me, the point would be that the point to be stressed by a disciplinarian that wants to put everybody in their shoes, in their rightful shoes, or address everybody, give them their blames, their shares of the discipline, would be that we have completely succumbed to our fellow human beings who looked us in the face, in the eyes, and said, we are not human beings as they are, but that we are mere beasts and other wild animals. We have, out of constant intimidation, decided to bow down to men rather than to God. For God has said that He is very jealous and will punish generations upon generations of people who bow to men rather than to Him, God. Let's keep reminding ourselves of this point that the Americo-Liberians set up their institutions, merely the government of Liberia, to execute their devilish policies and agenda against us the natives, and to propagate and uphold their argument that we of the original 16 African ethnic backgrounds of this country or this place are mere savages. Even the Americans themselves decried such depiction of the situation. Read about how Joe M. Sullivan of Cambridge School in Massachusetts stood against these kinds of descriptions or the kinds of painting of the situation. But apart from going beyond the surface in trying to understand these kinds of issues, as we are trying to do here, let's look at things from a very layman perspective or point of view. Somebody came and openly armed robbed your country from you, then killed some of you so massively for trying to agitate for your own land. Then probably through some outside intervention, you both start living together, though like cat and rat. However, they still hold on to this argument that you really are not complete human being, but instead you are half dog, half human being, half pig, half human being, half elephant, half human being, and parts of nonsense like that. And then they set up this one big structure, this white-collar terrorist organization, as we like to call it, called Government Liberia or GOM. Then to use your own resources to empower this criminal gang to adequately work against you in different, sometimes clever manners. But because of hunger and for the sake of getting some material benefit, we want to ride a car, want to get our own jeep, want to build a 3-bedroom house, you decide to join this gang called GOL in this case, which can one may will only educate you or train you how to work against your own people. This GOL will never seek the true interest of your people, because God is not mocked. We will say this repeatedly. So instead of resisting these people persistently with faith in God, just like our forefathers, our poor, defenseless, uneducated forefathers did on numerous accounts, in numerous bloody battles in the past. Like for example, we can read about the Crown Hill battle, the Fort Hill battle, the Crew battle, the Gribble War, the Sastown War, etc. All against the Americo-Liberians for how they treated our people. With confidence that we will ever or one day, that we will overcome one day, we decide, instead of going the route of our forefathers, we decide instead to join this criminal gang called government. And we are expecting some good outcome from it for our people with the passage of time. This is sheer stupidity and sheer mockery that just can't work. It's just impossible in the native people of this country. As the only benefit a native man can ever get from these Liberian institutions is just personal benefit, selfish benefit, mostly criminal benefit, but never any kind of sweeping or collective societal-wide benefit. That the result of such ugly trend, which in the end is ultimate disaster for all of us every time as a people. So because of our refusal to right this wrong, to come and prove that we are not animals as clean as these people, and that we can stand up on our own 2 feet. In fact, this land is ours. They armed robbed it from us. For us to go back on the drawing board, we decide to join them. The result is always war. Liberia has had 18 different kinds of wars, all bloody experiences. And look at the country today. What can you see here? It's an embarrassment to God. It's a liability in the community of nations. It's a threat to world peace. That's how dangerous the situation is, because we're refusing to put the first thing first. Do the first thing first. Get your theoretical foundation in place before all other things can follow. However, in these 3 painfully condemnable situations, as we have repeated in this lecture with emphasis, we believe that America and her Americo-Liberians carry the first and second places respectively in degrees and magnitude of the blames, owing to their exposure to education and to the light of civilization in every respect, including the complete control they even have or have had over our resources, natural, economic, human, and otherwise, as compared to the natives, whose little bit of faint exposure has almost totally depended on the Americans and Americo-Liberians once more. So we're saying, based upon the opportunities that each of the 3 groups have, each member of the 3 groups has, the Americo-Liberians, the Americans and Americo-Liberians carry the biggest of these blames as compared to the natives in all of the hula battles that we find ourselves in. We're just trying to be objective in sharing the blame. Moreover, the natives, who are less educated and less exposed as compared to these 2 groups, have been the only ones that history says have put up some substantial bloody civic resistance against their double enemies in the past. Imagine the kind of civil courages that our forefathers, our native forefathers, put up here against the Americo-Liberians. Suppose the Americo-Liberians were to put up those kind of civil courages against America. You drove us. We died. You never cared for us. And then we established our little place. They started picking us. Then you come now to do business with us. Suppose if the Americo-Liberians were not really bad apples, because the Bible says you just can't get bananas from planting. You can't pick bramble from thorn bushes and stuff like that according to Jesus. So we're just saying that these people are doomed. Americo-Liberians are doomed. And we have to get to the real issues. So if they were really not doomed, they were going to ensure that they resisted America. They were going to ensure that they stood on their own 2 feet, worked along their African brothers, and by now we're going to be talking a different story. So the civil courage or courages of our dear native forefathers, beginning with King Peter and his subjects' resistance of Captain Robert F. Stockton's armed robbery scheme in December 1821, for our land, to the Crown Hill, Foothill battle, and those of the list of bloody civil resistances put up by our native forefathers in the 19th and early 20th centuries are remarkable civil courages worth memorializing all through our existence as a people in this place. All these actions by our forefathers help to reduce our part of share in this huge unresolved historical blame in this terrible Liberian story that continues sadly to flourish up to this point. The only giant challenge that we now have as natives to confront is, and the best option at our disposal to help us clear ourselves totally of some of these dirty blames, is now to theoretically back off completely from Liberia and its institution, while remaining on our soil and protecting our soil because it belongs to us, as we make more room for a speedy design of a new civic arrangement of our own making, which will seek the welfare of all alike, and not just a few, by the grace of God. And the crucial beginning point of all this new civic design process is our demanded National Convention of 2017, in place of any funding process called election here, which is emanating from some bloody 1981 to 1986 constitution. So we're saying the best place now we can begin to really clear ourselves of this huge blame that God himself has interest in about what's happening here. All people of native backgrounds is for us to tell government Liberia, excuse us. Your election, wait or keep it. Let's go on a drawing board and discuss the issues here, because what's happening will not benefit us. It will continue driving us into bloodbath. Don't forget what Dr. Elwood John told us the last time. You can't keep moving with these kinds of national emblems. These are things that should reflect everybody's interest. You got a ratty motto, a stupid flag, a dirty seal, and you expect to leave all that unresolved and continue to vote. And you think you will not be judged by God, especially when you know what's happening. To whom much is given, much is expected. So to repeat this point for emphasis, we say, as everyone can now probably get a clearer picture of the challenge at hand, these three condemnable sets of force, with the three big actors or parties to this Liberian terrible tale, form the crux or main contention for why the Plaintiff Revolution now demands a national convention or national conference of bold, frank discussions as a national priority before any soul rests now in this country. There should be no excuse for resources and for leadership. God has already prepared us to take leadership in this process by his grace, to bring all the parties together for these discussions responsibly, and further, because we want to already be loaded with every major thing, every major argument that we'll be discussing at this convention, God willing, and not waiting to get there before groping for issues or information to bring to the table. That's why we have gone ahead and opened up on all of the critical issues in the country, and have made those writings and speeches public for everyone to have an idea, a full detail of them. We have also, through God's guidance, crafted solution options to be brought to the table at this convention. We have established, among other things, that it requires massive quality information and communications to get our people in the right frame of mind for this huge national challenge that we all now have at hand for change. We believe that all of the facts about our situation must be talked out and explained now in more details than any time ever in the past. We are convinced that it is when people fail or when they act lazy to dig out and disseminate all of the facts or information well about the common problems and situations that they normally resort to taking shortcuts by going into the bushes with guns to kill one another. We don't want to go this route anymore, because it doesn't work. What's the theoretical basis upon which we can even hold guns? We believe that if freedom, independence, and genuine change must ever come to us, then we must talk all of the bold-faced truths first and right now, no matter against whom. We believe that no people can ever succeed in building their own country, their own home, their own society out of fear. So we must give all of our fears and nerves to God right now as we take on this great challenge for change. We believe that everybody must be on board this process. That's why we are doing all of the writing, speaking, and actions. We place more emphasis, and are encouraging all government workers, especially our own home, LPRC, and its employees, to take this honest but radical agenda for change very seriously and get actively on board the process, because all the ordinary people of this country know that we are the ones enjoying, though not sufficiently, the national cake that rather belongs to all of us equally, and we are leaving them out so cruelly. The trouble attached here is that if we don't act quickly now to get on fire and take full ownership of this peaceful change process with the little privilege and opportunity that we have as a group of less than 1% over the rest of more than 99% of society, and we wait for our poor marginalized masses to wake up and smell the coffee for themselves all by themselves, to establish with utmost disgust that we are broadly robbing them of the resources that belongs to all of us equally in this country. Their reaction against us will be very terrible. This is possible, and God can approve it. Don't take it for a joke. So it is now time for us to take ownership of this process and act before our people wake up and do it for themselves. Again, because we want change to happen in this place at all costs right now, by the grace of God, that's why we are spewing out all of the truths and leaving no stone unturned, no matter the consequences, as we trust that our God will protect us and change our country, because we are only advocating His principles and precepts and not those of the devil. People who will have problems with us for telling the bold truths will be very unfair to us and to their own consciences, because these words or truths, no matter how raw and plain they are presented, just depict nothing but the reality, and as such they are justified during such a very crucial time in our urge to get delivered from the power of darkness. For we are not rude when we speak as we speak. We are only seeking change that will affect everybody's life positively now, because sugarcoating words has failed to do so in the past 194 years now. Come to think about it, if as bloody as war is, it can be justified at times, then what about strong words that bring about the healing truth? And by the way, who the honest person who want to have problems with a Yakbagulu for calling an Americo-Liberian born rogues or a bunch of short-sighted criminals with no iota of governance skills, with all the proof that we have here on ground, when in fact these Americo-Liberians are the ones on record, just as reflected in their actions toward us, who depicted us as or branded us as animals or half human beings, and continue to treat us as such. Which one of these two is more evil? Calling someone an animal and treating them as such when they have all of the body parts that you yourself have, and calling someone a born rogue when every track record of theirs proves criminality to the core, and even that person's own master was the first to declare them born or hardcore criminal. Who is really wicked in this particular case in point? Then another thing worth bringing to everyone's attention as we of the Plainfield Revolution embark on this very dangerous task is that all of what we have written, all that we continue to speak and will continue to act are more like drafts. They are like rough work that must be examined, debated, and finally stamped for approval or rejected by a larger body of citizens than the Print Revolution. That's why this demanded national conference or convention is so undodgeable. Even further, we will not succumb to anyone trying to intimidate us for what we've written and are speaking and are acting. And we are therefore encouraging all those who want to take us to task legally or somehow on these issues to wait. Let's come back from this convention first, because it is at the convention, that all of these things will either be validated or thrown out. As we draw to the close of this engagement, before getting to the aspect of doing some verbatim reading of our speeches or our Big Five circulars for your hearing convenience, we'd like to inform you that this campaign is a revolution. Not because it employs guns and machetes, but because it demands very radical actions that don't match the kinds of things that we're used to seeing in this country or hearing currently. Its arguments are strange, especially from the beginning, unless we take some time up to start examining these facts and reflecting upon them well for ourselves. It is also a revolution because it is intended to sweep across our country in short time and not to last long, because every revolution, whether peaceful or violent, comes with some crises and some inconveniences, and we don't want our already suffering people to get subjected to crises and inconveniences for any longer again, because our good people have gone through a whole lot and continue to go through a whole lot in this place. This campaign further is a revolution because, based upon the principles and tools that we're using, we're confident that its results, its positive results, will now change all of the ways we do and act. All the way we do and act in almost every aspect of our lives now, including family, religion, politics, economics, and other social aspects of our livelihoods as a whole. And this positive change will be sustained by the grace of God, as it is based on foundation upon God's honest and eternal principles. Still, to convince you, this campaign is a revolution because it recognizes that before any of these good things ever happen or work for us as a people, we must first be independent. That is, we must be able to now think and act for ourselves. But America, working through her Americo-Liberians, all of whom work through their structure called government of Liberia, will not allow this to happen easily, because that way they will stop enjoying some of the spoils, or the very many spoils that they continue to enjoy from this messy situation. So this agenda includes in its package the roadmap for independence in the end. In this direction, here is one of the radical points that we want everyone to reflect upon as we all push this demand for this unconditional national convention this year, 2017. And this point is that instead of spending money uselessly again on elections to invite upon ourselves hardship and bloodbath in the name of new government over this cursed, well-established criminal structure called Liberia, or government Liberia, the devil that we already know, him and Ellen Johnson Sirleaf, and are used to, must hold on to power. She and her government must hold on to power. They must hang on to be that last of this whole Americo-Liberia or American chapter over our destiny or over our lives. And let us be able to work with them. This last chapter, let's work with them to redesign our country. We say this because we think it's very needless and even senseless to add another layer of insult to this already doomed situation or structure called national government. So why not keep the particular last chapter of it and work with it to bring the change, then bring in another layer of it? That's a simple argument. As our writings and explanations now prove beyond all your doubts, we're not demanding that Ellen government or Ellen in our government temporarily stay on or hang on to power as we work together to redesign a new, better civic structure or civic institutions and systems, because our government has performed so excellently that we can't make it without them, or we need much of them or much of their actions. But because we believe that they have been used by God to help close this funny domineering American chapter in our lives, let us never forget that the God we serve does not work every time in what we humans look at as in positive or a positive way. For he allows certain things to even get worse at times just for him to prove himself or to prove a point. That's how he operates at times. Everyone will apparently agree that no time in the history of this country has the excesses and mess in modern times of this Americo-Liberian cruelty and lack of leadership onslaught alongside America's excessive imperialist maneuvers ever demonstrate themselves in full glare like what's happening during this early U.S. partnership arrangement with respect to Liberia since 1985. All this we believe have been enough to tell you or tell any sound-minded people that enough is enough, and that this whole America thing just can't work for us as a people. It should not take God's anger to bring us to this realization. When you bear all the patience for the sake of country and make time to go through all of our plain to revolutionary materials, which we encourage everybody to do now as a matter of civic and spiritual obligation, you will discover overwhelmingly that the activities of Madam Ellen Johnson Sirleaf in her GOL on the one hand, and the intrigues and imperialist maneuvers of the U.S. government, U.S. institutions, and capitalist companies, all combined on the other hand, in this country as we speak, do amount to some of the worst crimes against humanity at current. The activities of these two parties, especially during the past decade of the administration of President Ellen Johnson Sirleaf, have proven beyond every need for argument the very damned or doomed and gloomed nature of this funny so-called U.S. Liberian historical tie. The results and implications of these two parties' criminal maneuvers of human affairs in this place have positioned Liberia again as an imminent threat to world peace and security as we speak. Be that as it may, however, whether we look at these both parties' activities and actions and maneuvers as positive or negative, they have ultimately helped to shorten the suffering of they have ultimately helped to shorten the sufferings and agonies of our people, which could have sadly continued if these two parties had hidden some of their deadly deeds and behaved more pretentiously as they are most often used to doing. But God works in a mysterious way, and so he has exposed them so adequately to us, leaving us with the option of developing pride for ourselves and beginning to engage them now as we are doing now. Again, please go through our Plain to Revolutionary articles for more details. In closing, we say no matter our engagement as citizens of this country, we are encouraging all to take at most 2 to 3 weeks of your precious time to search for and go through every article and argument of the Plain to Revolution for our country. This polite injunction should never be taken for granted, as God is watching you. Remember that everybody has a compulsory role to play in deciding where their country goes, and we must be well informed before we positively play this role. Our failure to play this role also, we must note here, can cause disastrous consequences for the group as a whole or the country as a whole, because we can't allow our destiny to be decided and controlled by only a few or a portion of us every time. So for example, if you refuse to take these 2 to 3 weeks of what you call today your precious time to go through these new ideas for Mama Country, to examine them for yourself, so as to inform you whatever your decisions will be, and out of ignorance, we all go the wrong way again, another civil war could erupt, which because of the progressive record of war in this country could last us for 20 to 30 years again. Then those 2 to 3 weeks that were so precious to you today because of your business, your basic business or working obligation or engagement, to take up and read and listen to critical issues and solution options to your country's huge problems, so that you can have some positive impact on these situations. As everyone's input is now needed, your country plunges into another 30-year or so war with massive bloodshed and property loss, apart from causing huge embarrassment and disgrace for you among peers or friends in the community of nations. You may also overlook the fact that taking up exclusive quality time to examine issues pertaining to your country in such an orderly and systematic way as the Plainfield Revolution is now requesting you, or even demanding you to do right now, is a service to God. For nothing about the country and its people is outside of God's interest, because when you are talking country, you are talking about decent lives for God's children. You are talking about justice for Jehovah's children. You are talking here about redemption of your future generations and stuff like that. Crafters and vision bearer of the Plainfield Revolution, mere flesh and blood like all of you out there, having your own worldly ambitions and economic interests, and feeling every pain and humiliation that any one of you out there can ever feel when you go out of the things that you are quite used to doing every time, etc., have had to stand pains for 4 round years now to put these ideas together through the guidance and grace of our God. For us, it has been more of our part of way of serving Him, i.e. God. It has also been our way of telling the United Nations that there are billions of dollars of investment here in cash and blood to bring about decency, orderliness, and tranquility to this wayward Black American society will never be allowed to lie in ruins to the culture of laziness, injustice, lies, and all of its lieutenants, and has moreover been our way of showing love for country and fellow citizens, etc. And we now expect you to reciprocate all this by taking up your time to go through our work, whether it seems stupid to you or not. This is for country, using just a matter of weeks and not 4 round years as we had to go through while putting them together. Please keep at the back of your minds as you listen to us or go through our literatures that we are not professionals, as we said from the onset of this clip, with authorities in any of these areas or knowledge areas. We are not academicians coming to showcase our scholastic might or aptitude. We are not diplomats and establishment conformists coming to showcase our eloquence or rhetorical skills, and so on. But we are instead just passionate citizens and human beings doing all we can through God's power to ensure change, and change for the better for our people in our country and also our one world. As we now find ourselves at this brink, or at the brink of setting another great world record, which this time will be the greatest, as it will be a positive one and not negative, like the many great negative world records that this Americo-Liberia has set in the past. We particularly want to encourage journalists, municipal authorities, actors, and the likes to take full ownership of this process. Please give this agenda your fullest attention and the biggest publicity you can possible. So, as the Plainfield Revolution's marches and other civic activities are ongoing, for example, we expect news and business people to copy and spread our papers and speeches to increase readership and to improve audience. Wondering what we refer to here as being at the brink or verge of setting another great positive world record, let's hasten to tell you here that embedded in our Plainfield Revolution's agenda are such bold and constructive goals and objectives as the 3 below, which will be achieved by the grace of God under the Plaintree Revolution. 1. We are going to let the world know that all men were created equal or born equal, whether American, Americo-Liberian, Gio, Mandingo, Bassa, etc. And so just as others elsewhere came to their senses at some point in their lives and existence and rose up against smiling enemies determined to keep them down forever and excuse such enemies or detractors out of their lives, we, the members of the 16 tribal communities of this country, are ready to ask America and her Americo-Liberians rotten influences out of our lives. And strangely positively, we believe that with the currents of information that God has helped us to honestly reveal to all of the parties involved in this dangerous Liberian trouble, this particular impossible thing in the sight of men will now become true and become possible without a drop of blood or hostilities by the grace of God. 2. All of our major natural resources have now been almost entirely depleted by this US-Liberia partnership, this criminal partnership or conspiracy against us. Our rich agricultural lands, for example, have been massively used up by them without any substantial benefit to our poor people, the community dwellers, and so on. They have managed to more than 90% deplete our iron ore resource. For our gold, diamond, and other undocumented mineral resources, they have pillaged them with ease. They are now deep into our oil resource, which is the last most important one, after which they will just design some scheme and pit us against one another in some unending civil war, so as to take our attention off what they have done to us and then leave us as they are known for doing. But this revolutionary agenda, through God's power, is going to ensure that we rise up, even though it may appear too late now to others, to repossess and protect our balanced resources, no matter how little they may now appear to remain. And finally, all of the deadly issues here that continue to pile up and worsen on a daily basis haven't succeeded in going this way because no one here has seen and known them to the point of mustering the courage to tackle them. But unfortunately, because these issues have been cultivated and their ghastly results haven't set in economic rewards or resources by the world's superpower and their Americo-Liberian surrogates, it has always seemed impossible to tackle them. So in short, our problems have become so impossible to solve because the world's superpower has been the author and sustainer of these deadly issues for their pure economic gains and interests. Now this revolution is going to use pure faith in God to wipe away this dangerously damaging reality by God's grace, and we are bent on doing all this without any drop of blood by the grace of God. I want to thank you so much for taking up all your precious time to listen to us during this long engagement. Please get and listen to each of the file or clip of our remaining 4 audio recordings, which include 1. Why must we employ ethnicity's positive side or the positive side of ethnicity or some form of ethnic profiling to make change happen in this country finally? That's one clip. Clip number 3, looking a little more into our LPRC January 2013 bogus dismissal experience that made room for the Plaintree Revolution. These are clip number 3. Clip number 4, a full recording of our Plaintree Revolution's giant speech to the United Nations on the danger of this enduring Liberian story. Then, speech or audio recording number 4 is our Plaintree Revolution's 7 combined speeches to inform and sustain some civic actions that we plan to take at the U.S. Monrovia Embassy. Again, we now encourage everyone out there, apart from trying to listen to these recordings yourself, to also share them with friends and family members as much as possible. The recordings, the writings, the leaflets, the booklets, any of them you see from the Plaintree Revolution. try to share them as much as possible. For business and business-minded people, we even encourage you to produce them, reproduce them, maintaining their integrity and your originality, and sell and resell them as much as possible to improve audience while spreading the message. Note further that all these voice recordings can principally be found on our YouTube site, which will be disclosed to you ASAP, using different convenient means to keep you updated, as the current one we have is giving us some problems and we are trying to sort it out. But they, along with other revolutionary works, that is, these audio recordings along with other revolutionary works in print, can be found on our Facebook fan page at https://facebook.com/plaintruth2013. We have 3 discussion groups at whose sites these recordings can also be found, which are a Facebook group at https://is.gd co3bv, a Google Plus page at https://rs.gd cyzm54, and a Google Plus community page at https://rs.gd snsrhd. Our Twitter handle is at plaintruthrev, all one word, and we are encouraging you to join the debate on hashtag #PlainTruthRevolution for Liberia. We have also launched an online petition on Facebook to encourage all citizens of this country to say no to their upcoming bogus and colonial elections, and to demand a national citizens convention in its place this 2017 by the grace of God. We believe that our Plain Truth Revolution has truly drawn the battle lines for some constructive debate or struggle to now spring up between the forces of those who think that life and conditions within our country should remain just as they are, because this situation benefits a less than 1% of our population at the expense and blood of the balance 99.9% of society, and the forces of those who say no, a big no at that rate, that the status quo as introduced here since 1822 and flourishing up to this date in 2017 is very nasty and must be totally uprooted and changed now for the benefit of all of our people. Remember though that this is a battle for country, and therefore everyone, whether literate or illiterate, whether bright or black, whether old or young, etc., must be on board. And in the reading of the Plain Truth Revolution, what other way can we prepare everyone to get on board other than providing all of us the right quality information about our country in details and in grand style as God has now empowered us to do. It is all yours now, fellow citizens and other external stakeholders with some interest in this country, to easily access all of our articles and put yourself into the right frame of mind for change, as we believe God will hold you responsible for any more bloodshed experienced by our people because of your individual refusal to know the right thing about your own country so as to act right now in the right direction. Thank you so much once more.